And welcome back to Fox 5's On the Hill live this Sunday morning. Your Republicans may come away with a full sweep. Control of the House still up in the air, but it looks like the GOP could retain control of the House. And as we know, they have taken control of the Senate. Democrats still trying to make sense out of the election. Republicans are relishing their win. I want to bring our political panel this morning. Tim Parrish is a Republican strategist, and David Goodfriend is a Democratic advisor and president of I Street Advocates. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
So I'll just ask you the simple question I asked Brian Kelly at the top of the show. What happened?
Well, I think the congressman-elect you just had on said it very well. There is a worldwide trend where whether government is left or right, people are angry at incumbents because of inflation and because of insecurity over jobs and, frankly, over borders. And I think that we saw that manifest in the United States nationally. But, of course, locally here in the DMV, Democrats did extremely well. So I don't think we can sort of make a sweeping conclusion that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think we have a national issue, and then we have our local politics.
All right, so Tim, I'm going to hand you some figurative boxing gloves
Sure.
now. Sure. And you can punch everybody in the media in the noggin about what people don't understand about Donald Trump.
Look, Donald Trump has his uncanny ability to really connect with people. He took the Republican Party and he's made it the working man's party again. We had unions that started, we had a union guy talking at the RNC convention. Donald Trump has made the Republican Party the working man's party, and he's figured out really how to just connect with people. And I think one of the big things that we heard earlier is the Democrat message operated in silos, and Donald Trump had an ability to really connect with the American people and talk about issues that mattered to them. When he came to their communities, he kept it almost local, even though he's running for the top job. So I think he had this uncanny ability to really connect with folks and drive home his message in a way that really penetrated.
David, Governor Tim Walz was kind of created as a national figure when he went on CNN and he called Republicans weird. Julie Roginski is a very well-known Democratic strategist and analyst, said this past week that she feels that the Democratic Party has forgotten how to talk to the United States of American voters, that they are so caught up in their individual consistencies within the party that they have lost the big picture of how it is to actually converse with people. Is there anything to that in your view, and does this need to be a time of not just blame game, which we see going on with the Democrats right now? Nancy Pelosi with the New York Times saying Biden should have dropped that earlier, but looking deep within and saying, what are we doing? What are we doing wrong?
Oh, I certainly think it's a time for looking deep within. I think people should put their dukes down and really think about what went wrong and what went right, because there were a lot of things that did go right. I do think there's some truth to what you were just saying about speaking to working people who don't have college degrees. Trump is very good at that. Democrats sometimes are not very good at that. That union you mentioned is one of my clients. I mean, I represent labor unions as part of my practice, and half of those members voted for Trump. Sometimes against, I would argue, sometimes against their own self-interest, but sometimes because he was talking about things that they really care about. Immigration, job security, the economy. And I do think that we Democrats have always suffered from a messaging problem. We do a lot of things for people who earn wages, people who pay taxes. I'm not always convinced that that's messaged in the best way, but look, that's what we have elections for. And I think it's very important for a party that's out of power to use that time to really retool and come back.
And Tim, let's not forget, Donald Trump came into this race with enough baggage to fill the luggage return over at Reagan National. Why didn't that matter to voters?
Well, look, it turns out that it's not okay to call half the country misogynist. It's not okay to call half the country racist and all these types of things. I've actually been appalled with the left. I'm going to put those boxing gloves back on real quick that you mentioned earlier. I've been appalled.
I told you to use it on me.
Oh, with you? Okay, not on
I'm ready. I'm ready. We can do this.
Now we see the left, their response to this. We see on some of the shows, The View and other places where Hispanic men, they're all misogynists. It turns out you can't do that. What Trump was able to do with all his baggage, which I think, in fairness, was already out there from 2020. People were kind of already, well known on Trump and all the baggage, but he was really able to message. I'll say this last thing real quick. I talked to a female voter who has daughters, and she looked at me and she says, Tim, I have a gay son at home. I have a trans daughter. And I care about women's rights, but none of that matters if I can't fill up my gas tank, if I can't go buy groceries. And that was what an important factor was that Trump really tapped into and did a great job doing it.
It's the Carville principle over and over and over again, and it's probably one of the most oft-repeated, political manifestos in the last 30 years. It still holds true. I want to ask you about where we go from here, though, here in Washington. Donald Trump, when he first was elected in 2016, was a neophyte to Washington, admittedly didn't spend a lot of time here. This is a man who had 4 years under his belt in the Oval Office, whether you liked him or not. He now knows where the levels of power are. What do you expect out of a different Donald Trump now? And take that for what you will. What should we expect to see?
Well, it's easy now for me as a Democrat to say, okay, you won, you own it. Let's see what you can do. Will you lower inflation? Will you bring wages up? Will you add to job security? I mean, it's very easy from the grandstands to look down at the field and say, let's see what you can produce. It's much harder when you're governing. It's much harder when you're governing. And in this case, I think if you look at the goals, you had these up on the screen in the last segment. You look at the goals that President-elect Trump has laid out. Not always easy to implement, and will it hit people in the pocketbooks? Tax breaks for billionaires. I'm not sure if that's going to lower inflation, but it's up to him now. He's got to try.
Tim, you get the last word on this. Trump in a second term?
Look, he's hired the first female chief of staff in the history of the country, Susie Wiles. She's amazing. She's very talented, smart, capable, and I think she's tough. She's going to get the job done, and they're already on the ground running now. And I think you're going to see, by way of personnel, you're going to see Trump do a much better job in hiring the secretaries that make up his cabinet. I think you're going to be much better. I think you're going to see a more effective and focused administration this time around.
It's surprising, though, that even though Trump had a rocky relationship with a lot of the people in his first term, people that he fired, and he initially said that they were the best, doesn't seem to be having any trouble attracting potential candidates for these positions. David, good friend, Tim Parrish, we thank both of you for joining us live this morning. Before we go, we want to remind you and point out, tomorrow's Veterans Day. We celebrate Veterans Day tomorrow. Tim, we know you served in the United States Marine Corps, completing multiple overseas and domestic assignments. Tim Parrish and David, good friend, we thank you so much for being here with us. And we thank all of you for joining us. Just a final word to you. What does tomorrow mean to you? What should people remember tomorrow?
Look, the Veterans Day is for those of us that are living, that served. Memorial Day is much different, but Veterans Day, you know, thank a veteran for their service. I will say real quick, a quick plug. Today is the Marine Corps birthday, and you got to get through the Marines first to get to Veterans Day. So happy 249th birthday to all the devil dogs that serve the United States Marine Corps.
My good friend Jonathan Bomer would not forgive me if we did not mention the Marine Corps. We thank you so much.